Hey, Joy family, happy Thursday to you all. It is great to be joining you again here from my office and with a little word for you this morning. But before we do, a couple of housekeeping items. Tonight, we have our Ladies Connection down in the park. And then this Saturday, our Tribe Youth Group is having a beach day down in Strathmere. They're meeting over at N3C at 8:30 a.m. So if you have a teen or a student, you can join them over there and go down for a nice day at the shore. It should be a nice warm day. So great day to be there. And then this Sunday, again, we are going to be opening up the sanctuary to meet in person again. To start meeting in person again. We're going to post the guidelines later on today, just so you know that it is with restrictions and with guidelines, and there's some things to think about and some things to pray about, whether you think you should come or not. We're still going to be live streaming, so we'll still be on go to our Facebook or YouTube page or our website, and you can watch our service live. But if you would like to come and you're not in one of those high-risk groups and you feel comfortable coming, we'd love for you to join us. And it is Father's Day, so we have a gift for all fathers. And if you come, you'll get your gift. And dads, if you come in subsequent weeks, we're going to have our gifts here for you. So we'll make sure you get your gift. It's a really cool thing this year. But we'll be in Romans chapter 12, finishing that up this Sunday as we get back to our journey through the letter of Romans, Paul's letter of Romans to the Romans. So that's what we have going on. Now, we continue today in our look at miracles. We started on Tuesday by looking at the miracle, Jesus' miracle of turning water into wine. And these miracles are much more than just supernatural acts. They are actually ways that Jesus reveals himself and some of his character to us through these supernatural events of God. And so we're looking at these different miracles. We're not going to look at all the miracles. It's not a comprehensive look. It's some of my favorite miracles. So I'm a little biased, and we're going to look at some of my favorite miracles. So the miracle we're going to look at today is another one of those miracles that happened early on in Jesus' ministry. And it's found in Luke chapter 5. So I just want to read through it, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about how Jesus is revealed and how we can follow him better. So here it is. In Luke chapter 5, it says, "On one occasion, while the crowd was pressing in on him to hear the word of God, he," this is talking about Jesus, "was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, or the Sea of Galilee. And he saw two boats by the lake, but the fishermen had gone out of them and were washing their nets. Getting into one of the boats, which was Simon's or Peter's, he asked him to put out a little from the land, and he sat down and taught the people from the boat. And when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, Put out into the deep and let your nets down for a catch. And Simon answered, Master, we toiled all night and took nothing, but at your word I will let down your nets. And when they had done this, they enclosed a large number of fish, and their nets were breaking. They signaled to the partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled the boats so that they began to sink." Isn't that cool? But when Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, "Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord." For he and all who were with him were astonished at the catch of fish that they had taken. And so also were James and John, sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. And Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on you will be catching men." And when they had brought their boats to land, they left everything and followed him. Now, being a fisherman, obviously you can see why this is probably one of the miracles of Jesus that I really like the best, and that is part of it. Man, to realize, you're fishing and you're catching nothing, and then all of a sudden, man, you just have so many fish you don't even know what to do with. So in that sense, it's a really cool miracle. But in this miracle, it's actually a backdrop. It serves as a backdrop for Jesus calling his first disciples or his first followers to follow him. So this is kind of a miracle that reveals why Jesus is worth following, or why we should follow Jesus, and how we can follow Jesus better. So here's what we learn through this miracle, and the lesson that we learn in it is this: Jesus is worth listening to. Jesus is worth listening to. I mean, very easily, Simon and his buddies there, his fellow fishermen, his partners, could have just said, you know what, no, don't get in our boats. I mean, they're dirty, and we don't want you to do that. And then when Jesus pushed off from shore and he told them to let down their nets, they could have said, no way. I mean, we haven't caught anything, so we know better than you. But they didn't. They listened to Jesus, and because they listened to Jesus, they experienced his power and his presence in a mighty way. In fact, such a mighty way that their lives were changed. Do you ever want to live a changed life? Did you ever want to say, man, Jesus, I wish you could work in me and through me. I wish I could follow you more wholeheartedly. Well, within this miracle, we see a couple keys to this. A couple keys to listening to and following Jesus. And why Jesus is worth listening to. And the first is this. If we want to listen to Jesus and we want to find that Jesus is worth listening to, we need to spend time with him. Right? The disciples, or these fishermen, they didn't just kind of happen upon Jesus and meet him and he tells them, oh, let down your nets for a catch. He was teaching the crowds, right? So they're listening to his teaching as well. And being Jews in that day and age, all the Jews were looking for the Messiah. They were looking for a teacher. They were looking for a great man who could uncover the Bible for them so that they could hear from God better. And so they could be delivered. So these disciples, these men listening to Jesus, they're starting to say, wait a minute. Could this be? This man speaks the truth. He speaks with power. As a matter of fact, when Jesus tells Simon Peter, I want you to cast off and throw your nets on the other side of the boat for a catch. Throw down your nets for a catch. In verse 5, how does Peter respond? He says, Master. That's pretty significant for him to see Jesus at his master. He just didn't say, hey, guy who just used my boat. But he saw Jesus as master. That was a term of submission. It's a term of saying, you know what, you have something greater than I have. So they spent time. They heard his teaching. And they're like, man, this guy teaches as if he's from God. So he has something to share. If we want to listen to God, we need to spend time with him. If we want to experience Jesus' wisdom and his power in our lives, then we need to know that he's worth listening to. The only way we do that is to spend time with him. We're not going to see somebody as worth listening to that we don't even know. So spend time with Jesus. Spend time in his word, getting to know him. And you know what you'll do? You'll say, man, yeah, of course he's worth listening to because he speaks the truth. And then one other key that we see in this that's really interesting is that they obeyed. Simon Peter obeyed. Look what it says in verse 5. He says this, after he says, Master, we toiled all night and caught nothing, but at your word, I will let down the nets. Now think about this. These guys are professional fishermen. They knew better. They knew better than the common man how to catch fish. This was their livelihood. This was their expertise. Yet, and it was their experience. They said, this is a tough night of fishing. There's no fish around. We've seen this before. There's no use in doing this. There's no use in keeping fishing right now. Yet this guy comes up to him, teaches about God's word, and then what do? He says, I want you to go and let down your nets for a catch. Now, sometimes our expertise or our wisdom can get in the way of us listening to God. Very easily, these guys could have said, you know what? No, we know better. Who are you to tell us this? You don't know fishing. We know fishing. This is our stuff. But they put away their pride and they obeyed. And when they obeyed, wow! The results were amazing, weren't they? And sometimes we can get in the way of listening to Jesus and experiencing him and following him because we think we know better. We put our expertise in the way and we say, oh no, God, you couldn't possibly mean for me to do that, to share you at work like that, because that's not the way it works. I have to kind of just be around people and they'll come to me. I don't need to go out to people. See, you don't understand. This is our era. This is our culture of the day. And sometimes we can put those limits on God. And when God is leading us in a direction and we can say, no, but I know better. I've been here, I'm 52 years old. I know things in life. I have expertise. Yet, what happens with Simon and his compadres, right? They listen to Jesus, they obey him, and man, do they experience Jesus' power in their lives. They experience his provision for them, but also they sit up and they take notice. There were so many fish that their boat was sinking. This is an uncommon experience for them to have. So there's no doubt in their mind that this was something that Jesus brought. So that when Jesus said, you know what, from now on, you're going to be catching men. And it said immediately they left their nets, they left their livelihood, they left their business, and they followed Jesus. You know, Jesus is worth listening to. He's worth listening to when he leads us in our lives, when he speaks through his word in our lives and gives us his wisdom on how to interact with others, on how to share him with others, and how to follow him in our daily lives at work or at school or when we're with our family, and how to love each other. Jesus has wisdom, and he's worth listening to. So that's your encouragement this morning from this miracle of the great catch of fish. Have a great day, Joy family.